There's a kind of tiredness that sleep doesn't fix. You've felt it. Maybe you feel it right now. It's not in your muscles. It's not even really in your mind. It's somewhere deeper. Somewhere that used to feel alive. And the strange part? You can't explain it to anyone. Not even to God. Because you're still showing up. Still praying. Still believing, technically. But something inside you has gone very, very quiet. Let me describe your day. You wake up, not rested, just done sleeping. You reach for your phone before your feet hit the floor. Not because you want to, just because the silence feels like too much. Because the moment you're fully awake, something starts pressing on your chest. Something you can't name. Maybe you pray. Or you try to. You say the words. But they feel like they're hitting a ceiling. Like they're going nowhere. You get through your obligations. Work. Conversations. The performance of being okay. And somewhere between one task and the next, you notice it, you're not really present. You're watching your own life from a slight distance. Going through the motions of being you. And at the end of the day, you scroll. Not for entertainment. For numbness. For something to fill the space where peace is supposed to live. And before you fall asleep, a thought moves through you. Quiet. Almost casual in how devastating it is. I don't know when I last felt genuinely okay. If that lands somewhere true in you, this video is for you. Because what you're experiencing is not a spiritual failure. It's not weakness. It's not a sign that something is permanently wrong with you. But it is a sign. And most people miss it entirely. Because here's what nobody tells you about this kind of exhaustion. It's not just emotional. It's physiological. It's neurological. And in the Christian life, it becomes something far more dangerous than either of those things. Your nervous system has two fundamental modes. The first is activation, fight, flee, perform, manage, survive. The second is restoration, rest, repair, receive, feel. Most people in modern life never fully leave the first mode. And for Christians, there's a third layer on top of that. The constant internal pressure to be spiritually okay. To be grateful enough. Faithful enough. Not struggling too much. You carry the world's stimulation, plus your own emotional labor, plus the silent guilt of not feeling the way you think a person of faith should feel. Your brain. And this is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. Your brain under chronic low-grade stress begins to suppress the very neural circuits responsible for emotional depth, for wonder, for connection, for the thing that used to make a quiet morning feel like grace. The technical term is emotional blunting. But you don't need the term. You know the feeling. Everything that used to move you doesn't move you the same way anymore. Worship feels like going through motions. Scripture feels familiar but distant. Even people you love, you're with them, but there's a kind of glass between you and the feeling of loving them. And the worst part, the part that makes this so dangerous for believers, is that it mimics apathy. It looks like you've stopped caring. But you haven't stopped caring. You're exhausted from caring too much, in too many directions, for too long, without ever being allowed to just stop. This is called depletion. And it doesn't announce itself. It arrives slowly, quietly, like a light dimming, so gradually you don't notice until the room is nearly dark. But there's another layer to this. One that goes beyond psychology. One that touches something the neuroscience books don't fully account for. Because this exhaustion, for a person of faith, doesn't stay in the body. It migrates. It migrates into the soul. Spiritual depth layer, 5:15 to 7:30. There's a passage in the Psalms that most people read as poetic, but it's actually a diagnostic. My soul is weary with sorrow. Not my mind, not my emotions, my soul. Ancient Hebrew psychology understood what modern neuroscience is only beginning to map, that the human being is not compartmentalized. What happens to the body, the mind, and the spirit, they contaminate each other. They inform each other. They exhaust each other. When a person of faith reaches depletion, they don't just lose energy. They lose the capacity to receive. The nervous system that was designed to open, in prayer, in worship, in stillness, in the presence of something greater. That system shuts down as a protection mechanism. You're not losing your faith. You're losing access to the feeling of your faith. And that distinction matters enormously. Because most Christians, when this happens, assume the problem is spiritual. They pray harder. They try to feel more. They push through. They perform the emotional states they think God requires. And the pushing, the performance, drains them further. It's like trying to fill a cup by pouring from it. Thomas à Kempis wrote, centuries ago, about the soul that is always busy, always striving, always producing, and how that soul becomes like a dry field, unable to receive rain. Not because the rain isn't falling, but because the ground has hardened. You haven't hardened. You've just been trying too hard, for too long, to feel something you were never meant to produce on your own. And this is where things become genuinely dangerous. Not dangerous in a dramatic way, in a quiet way, the slow way. The way a fire goes out not in a sudden gust, but in the absence of oxygen, over time, without anyone noticing until the warmth is simply gone. The danger is not that you'll walk away from faith in a single dramatic moment. The danger is adaptation. The danger is that the numbness becomes familiar. The distance becomes normal. The empty prayers become a routine. And one day you realize, not with crisis, but with a dull, muted recognition, that you've been living inside a life that looks like yours but doesn't feel like it anymore. You start managing life instead of living it. You start performing connection instead of feeling it. You start speaking the language of faith while being privately certain that something, somewhere, has gone deeply wrong. And the silence around this, the loneliness of it, the way you sit in church and sing the words while a small part of you watches with a kind of quiet grief, because you remember what it felt like to mean them. That loneliness is one of the heaviest things a person can carry, because you're surrounded by a community built on the premise of being seen by God, and you feel unseen by your own interior life. You're disconnected from yourself. And when you're disconnected from yourself, prayer becomes monologue. Worship becomes performance. Community becomes company. And the whole architecture of your spiritual life starts to feel like a building you live in but no longer inhabit. This is the silent exhaustion. This is what it actually looks like from the inside. And most people go years, decades, without anyone giving it a name. But what most people never realize is this. The way back is not forward. It's not more effort. It's not a better spiritual discipline. It's not trying harder to feel something. The way back is a direction almost no one gives you permission to go. Stop. Not dramatically. Not permanently. Not with guilt. Just stop. Stop performing okayness. Stop trying to manufacture spiritual emotion. Stop running the engine that was never meant to run this long without rest. There's a word in the Hebrew tradition, Shabbat, that means, roughly, to cease, to stop, to lay down. But the deeper root carries something more visceral. It means to exhale, not to pause and come back stronger, not to rest so you can be more productive, to exhale, because you've been inhaling for so long, taking in information, stimulation, obligation, expectation, that you've forgotten the other half of breathing. And this is where the science and the sacred meet in a way that feels almost conspiratorial. Your nervous system can only enter restoration mode when it perceives safety, when the guard comes down, when the performance stops. And God, whatever your understanding of God is, that presence has never, not once in the entire biblical record, been encountered through performance. It's encountered in wilderness, in exhaustion, in the garden at night, in the question asked from inside the storm, not from the pulpit. The disciples fell asleep in Gethsemane. Jesus didn't send them away. He let them sleep. There is something in that scene, small, easily missed, that feels like permission. Not permission to be spiritually careless. Permission to be human. Permission to be a person who has a body, a nervous system, a limit. Permission to be tired. You are allowed to be tired. Not as a theological concept, as a real, actual, immediate truth that applies to you. Today, in the exact state you're in right now. You are allowed to be in the middle of this. You are allowed to not have it resolved yet. You are allowed to pray a prayer that is just, I don't know what I'm feeling and I'm too tired to figure it out, but here I am. That is not the bottom of faith. That might be the most honest faith has ever looked. I don't know what you're carrying right now. I don't know how long it's been since something felt genuinely light. I don't know whether the exhaustion you're feeling is new, or whether it's been with you so long you've stopped trying to name it. But I know this. The fact that you're here, the fact that some part of you is still looking, still searching for something, even when everything else feels flat and far away, that is not nothing. That is something. That small flicker, the one that made you click, that made you stay, that made you sit with this for 14 minutes, even when the rest of your life was pulling at you. That is not exhaustion pretending to be hope. That is hope. Quiet, depleted, barely visible, but there. And maybe that's enough for tonight. Maybe restoration doesn't begin with the dramatic return. Maybe it begins exactly here, in the acknowledgement, in the exhale, in the willingness to say, to yourself, to God, to no one in particular, I am tired, and I don't know when it started, and I don't know when it ends, but I am still here. Still here. Breathe. The rest can wait.